I thought you were gonna think that when I looked over there that's what I was thinking,
But
and I was like the thought was like there, probably hovering right here. You know, it's just filled with, I am coffee and I'm empty.
but you already had enough?
I probably did. I'm
Well,
okay.
let me
I
know.
can just have water, plain old water. We're live right now.
Oops.
Greetings.
Well, I might have some.
I'm gonna save this to some other locations.
You can have a shot of my coffee.
Mm.
You can guzzle some coffee. What are you doing?
It's all right. I misspelled a word. I do it all the time. I mean, I use the wrong word in a context of the
Mm.
language.
Maybe you do it on purpose subconsciously.
No, not in these cases. I was taking the high side. I don't know why it's taking so long to load, though.
I noticed that the internet was taking a little while.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's because there's a lot of people here for the
But
weekend.
DSM is here, so I guess it's working. I'm just not getting any video. There's it, finally. It says hello, and says the world has lost its mind even more. Yeah,
It is so
it's true.
crazy.
It's true.
Like, we thought it was crazy. It's just, gosh. Let's just call out to T and O that we can survive these times.
Yeah.
Or not. I don't
That's
know.
funny the way the video is working so that when the slideshow is doing it,
Uh-huh.
the previous slide
Uh-huh.
stays there while the new one is being loaded. So you got two slides in one. Kind of interesting, right? I saw Rick Odie's face fading. So yeah, we're going to talk about audio tape 785 recorded. I got to share this. A lot of things related to it. Let's see if I can share this with Facebook. I'm okay. And Twitter X, my traditional two places that I've been using for a long time. I used to do things with Now Public. There was a social media site called Now Public. I don't know if they're still around. And there were some others that I've used over time. It looks like this has worked. Except with Twitter, they don't actually show my icon picture. Oh, I don't know. Other people have pictures. I just can't find out. Anyway, well, that's right. I gotta pop out my chat in case a few folks show up and have things to say. And let's see, we've got the traditional three watching. I guess that's DSM, me, and maybe it's Kathy. Let's see here. So the world's lost its mind, huh? DSM, yes. Yes, it continues to, the heat is being turned up
Yeah.
by the next level.
I didn't check like what's going on in Gaza, but I don't know. Like
They're moving,
a million
they're
people.
trying to,
They're not trying. They're doing it.
yeah, they're moving 1 million people or something like that.
They're even trying.
And you don't see that talked about much.
Well, Al Jazeera's talking about it.
Yeah, Al Jazeera talks about it, but of course, United States media, right or left,
Yeah, I know.
doesn't really talk about it. Well, actually, the
The
left
right
talks
was
about it
talking about
more.
it a little bit.
Yeah, because they have a lot more world news than
Well,
you
I
see
know
on the right. The right's getting awful boring with what they talk about.
it's the
Uh,
same propaganda.
yeah, the same old, uh, like, well, I'm not going to get into that right now,
Yeah,
but
no politics. Let's talk about what
yeah,
Doe was talking
I'm going to
about.
get to the tape.
It's terrible. The
So,
world is terrible.
um, so Dell is actually talking about in this tape making room for T in his quarters. T is outside her vehicle at the time in 1993. I was there, present in the meeting, and we watched Star Trek after that, an episode together. Doe was actually living in our same quarters, our own, in the same house. I think everybody was in that location. I think it was. I think it was. Let's see, where was it? Um, let's see, February of '93. So it was after Beyond Human. So
Were you guys out in Phoenix?
we were in California for Beyond Human in the warehouse,
Hmm.
and we might have went back to Arizona. Uh, um, it might have been Paradise Valley. And I know you'll hear in this, you'll hear Wanodi being mentioned that he was in there in that meeting, and you'll hear that some of the ones I say Wanodi because Wanodi still has his vehicle and he's very much still a complete believer in Tiendo, and he lives in Venezuela. And anyway, and he's you
He's a
know
great guy.
he's sharing the truth with people. He's doing his next level task. He's a good person. Yeah. I mean, not that anybody's. I'm not trying to. It's good to see that he's still thirsty for their minds and for sharing their minds with other people because um, it's a condition of losing our thirst that actually separates us from the next level. Um, because we can even go backwards to where we're completely satisfied with where we are, what we're doing. I mean, you could you could appear to be dissatisfied, or you could be satiating your satisfaction with all kinds of addictions, right? All kinds of uh, entertainment and causes to in the human kingdom to occupy your time on. And it's not that those things are right or wrong. It's just a matter of uh, um, what how much um, your thirst is directed towards what's outside this planet. In whatever ways we can think about it. And that's why people search for things that are considered to be spiritual. And getting into the paranormal is part of that too. But then it gets to a point to where that becomes old hat also. And but then those that gravitated to it so much that they become teachers and writers and things in those veins, then they become potentially more glued to it, just like when people become glued to their politics and their businesses and their careers and their families and everything in the human kingdom is actually something that humans can become glued to. And that's the way the human kingdom is it's designed to have the options that have that result. More and more, it's all in degrees. It's not like it's on or off. Like somebody isn't, we're not the judges of how far somebody is uh, into the human kingdom and not separating from the human kingdom. Because if we're not happy here, um, uh, it doesn't necessarily mean we're separating from the human kingdom. We just might want, let's say we want money, okay, in order to live and, you know, not have to worry about money or do things that we want to do. I mean, it doesn't mean that that can't be used in a way to give lessons that then, but the object is, for the next level's perspective, is to get out of wanting that, get out of the desire for it. It doesn't mean that the next level doesn't want us to have like nice things and a comfortable lifetime and health and family and everything. But they don't want us to want those things. It's hard to make the switch. Well, it can be difficult to make the switch of seeing that reality. And that's part of what I wanted to talk about today, with which is related to tape 785 stimulating, and that is uh, uh, the way that I could be wrong about this, but once the revealing, what I'm calling the great revealing, has taken place and uh, there is not enough thirst among the members of the human kingdom uh, uh, to to have more, to recognize more of what's reality um, around us, then when that thirst dwindles down, I imagine it won't be long until uh, um, any recycling that the next level chooses to do takes place in more major ways. But that we're working up to because the next level is preparing everybody for it, and they've been doing it for a long time. You know, but it's been framed as a Christian thing because of the revelation, materials, which is actually the root of that word is uh, um, reveal. It's a show of the truth. It's a show of like things that were hidden before. And we can hear Jesus talking about it, and that's why see, but you're very rarely going to hear many people talking about it the way I am, because if they don't have more conscious aspects, no, they don't have more conscious um, uh, recollection from the source of that revealing being T and Do's minds through through reading their materials, through watching the videotapes, through listening to the audio tapes. And that's all a process and a process of growth because it is growth. It's totally logical that it's growth because they're talking about things that you won't find in the textbooks talked about that clearly, like in one spot, so to speak, to the degree and all the details involved that you'll get through the T and O materials, T and O and crew materials. Uh, and it's practical details, and it encompasses everything that's happening in the human kingdom, and actually everything that happens in the animal kingdom, and the human kingdom is part of the animal kingdom. Was clarified. I remember in some past live streams, I was wondering if the comparison of the next level members to humans was equivalent to the comparison of uh, um, human members with the animal kingdom members, like the dogs and the cats and the domesticated animals especially, and but other animals as well that aren't domesticated. Uh, so, because I was wondering, I thought it was every time I would talk about that, I would have the sense in my mind that it's a much bigger gap between the next level and humans. Humans that are moving up into domesticated next level members, in a sense. Domesticated in that context doesn't mean subservient to the way that the lower forces would have us think that way. It means that um, uh, um, that service to the next level becomes like being given a really good dessert. It's like it's much more than that. Of course, I'm just trying to equate it with.
Well, Doe even talked about it being your addiction.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you be addicted to the next level.
right, right. Addicted to the next level, and and their mind, and the way they think, and the way they feel, the way they operate, the way they do things,
The
and
first thing you dream of.
not pretending that we can judge them, and even even determine that they don't exist. It's impossible to actually know that they don't exist. I think that's it's kind of a dichotomy of words, right? Impossible to know something because the idea of know is like knowledge, right? But of course, that's been overturned over and over again, where some people have what they consider to be knowledge, and then it turns out that there's hardly any knowledge in it. They don't really know what they're talking about, but they think they do. And of course, the people that are delving into like the understanding of what's happening in outer space know a lot of them know that they don't understand that much, but that doesn't stop them, of course, from talking about the things that they think they do understand. And I think those things are probably about the best they can do. And I certainly can't do it as well as a lot of the people that are talking about outer space, like we watch
Stefan
Stefan
Burns.
Burns talk about Atlas, Three Eye Atlas, and he's got all kinds of measurements and observations through different kinds of the light spectrum and the spectrographic
He pulled that from a journal,
and
an
electromagnetics
article.
as well. But he's putting it together and he's talking about it in
Hmm.
lay enough terms that someone like myself can
Yeah.
understand enough.
Yeah,
But
he
see,
took that scientific. I don't
yeah,
know where that thing was published, where that article was published that he was breaking down.
right,
But that was like 20 different astrophysicists that put that report together.
okay.
Yeah, he was just breaking it down.
Which as far
Did
as I could
very
tell, was doing a
well.
great job.
Yeah, super
And
informative.
yeah, it's really good to listen to him because it's true that we can humans have been given the the impetus and the direction, and because of their own thirst to try to learn about what's happening in outer space
Hmm.
and on the Earth with the physics of it and everything. And and so the development of devices and stuff to measure the
Yeah,
light spectrum
right. And
and the
how it's
electromagnetic
measured. Yeah,
fields, yeah, and
and
how they interact.
and someone that's able to like explain that in a way that you can understand is a pretty good talent.
Yeah,
It's a pretty good skill to have.
right, and so we appreciate it because it helps us see what's more real about it. Even though uh, that there's a lot of things about it, that they don't even have a clue
Yeah,
is
there's
happening.
just yeah.
And a lot of people know that that's the case, and those are the people that are more thirsty, I think, when they know that there's a lot more to learn about, but they're working with what they've got and not trying to pretend that they know it all because nobody knows it all. Doe demonstrated not knowing it all. T demonstrated not knowing it all. But Doe demonstrated that he knew that T knew a lot more than he did. And part of this tape talks about, uh, um, well, in this instance, it's becoming more aware of T's presence, and to the degree that Doe is talking about it as that he felt like he believed that if T wanted to be physically present in a human vehicle that she borrows, that's the way he said it, I think. We didn't replay that to be sure, but
Well, it was something Al Lodi was asking if she came back or something. If she would, I don't know. It was really hard. If I don't, I don't know. I would be really hesitant to talk about that because we were so unclear about they were actually saying because it was so low. I don't think he was saying that she'd be coming back or in a human form or. Although he was asking I if the next level would take things from human or something, but I couldn't understand. We couldn't hear what he was saying, so I would
well,
hate to try to like say something and it's not anywhere near what he was saying.
well,
Kind of like the gypsies house husband thing.
well, I misheard the word.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, like, we really could not hear what he was saying at all.
Well, there's a bunch of words that in the notes that I took, that those said, I also know that T could show up in a vehicle of a total stranger that she borrowed, but don't know if the PJs could fit her. So he talked about going to Dillard's. Would they,
He said that he,
and at the next level doesn't
no,
know
you're
everything.
mixing all that up. Sorry to say it like that, but he did not, he said that the reason why he was keeping clothes and things in his quarters for tea was because he didn't think that she was going to stop by Diller's and get those things first before she came to visit him.
Okay, that's fine, but it's the same thing is what I'm talking about because he said that, he doesn't assume that the next level can do everything. And that, what he mentioned in the same context of what we're talking about, that, whether we would, they would have funds to give her from Purser in order to go to Dillard's,
He was saying that he didn't know if the purser,
issue funds.
if T's purser would issue funds.
Well, he said if Purser would issue funds.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I feel like I guess you're pretty certain about what you heard, so
I
we'll
don't
just
find it
leave it at
anything
we'll
different
just
than
leave
what
it
you
at
heard
that.
necessarily. But it's just informing us that the next level is real, and they can do things that we have no idea that they can do in the physical world, in the physical realms.
Hmm.
We don't know that the next level couldn't uh, um, uh, be among somebody in a physical body. I mean, they've talked about that before. Whether it's wherever they got that physical body from. Like,
So
for
now you're
instance,
gonna have people coming in and saying that they're T.
well, that people do that anyway.
I mean, I'm just saying,
You
like
know,
that's the danger of saying that T's gonna come back in maybe a complete stranger's body or something.
I'm not
Don't
saying that
think that
that's
that's what
going to
he meant
happen. I'm
saying.
saying that that is a potential that could happen. Um,
Anything is a
but
potential
don't,
that could happen, right?
well, not anything is a potential to happen. It's up to the next level to decide what they can do and what they want to do. I don't, um, so, um, but yeah, like let's say somebody does come and say, well, I'm T, uh, so which has happened in this live stream. People have said things like that, and then the next words out of their mouth shows how much they're not T. I mean, it becomes so obvious. It's like uh, um, if a dog was barking and could talk and said, "I'm a human," could have those words come out of their mouth, you would know that they weren't a human. Even if you didn't see them, you would, the things that they would talk about, that's not a good analogy, okay?
What's
I,
going on?
I get that. But you would learn that they don't know what they're talking about. Now, we see that happening all the time in politics and stuff, and sometimes we don't know how to identify it. And so we're just like, oh my gosh, just watch this and watch that. And someone says this and someone says that, and someone elaborates on this, and they input their own views of this little thing that happened and that little thing that happened, and that means this and that means this, and getting all upset about all kinds of things, and that's the heat being turned up on this planet. That's part of it. That's one of the symptoms, I believe. And this was meant to be this way because not that it's meant to be that people respond in negative ways of like killing each other and wishing each other were dead and stuff like that. Those are definitely negative ways that humans don't have the ability to be the judgment of, among others. But that's when things seem to be escalating towards more and more in the United States, where it wasn't so much a problem in the United States for a
Well,
long
it's
time.
always been. I mean, it's been a problem that people have been murdered.
Yeah, yeah, and all kinds of problems that have been in the United States, but uh, yeah, to
I
the
would say
degree of civil wars and
at
stuff.
least one person, at least. I mean, I wonder what the statistics is of how many people are shot and killed by with a firearm every day.
Hmm. Yeah, it's yeah, it's a lot. We don't, it's beyond our grasp of how many. probably at this point. And whether it's escalating or not, I think it probably is. I mean, people would say that a lot of things that have been happening for a long time are not escalating. They've always been that way. But, it's, and that, you know, it, the illusion is taking over. The illusion is what we don't really know, but we can tend to cling to
You got
uh,
some stuff going on in the chat there.
and believe in. So, because like those said in USA Today, that we get what we believe in. We go to the heaven that we believe in. So, if that heaven isn't defined as a heaven in a religion, but is defined as being, you know, part of a um, um, well, belief is that I'm not sure I can express it in a way that might express it. I'd have to go. I should go to the actual document, and that's why it's helpful to have the documents, um, so that we can stay on track better with using their words. Because when we start to get away from their words, then we start to lose the images that those words represent. And if we lose the images, that's the illusion. And you can say that the world has been saturated with images of misinformation. That's safe to say. For a long time, for a long, long time, from the beginning of the civilization. And before that, uh, in the development of spirits and souls. And that's what that's what's developing. Mind, ways of thinking, um, um, ways of thinking that are closer to next level ways of thinking. And they don't think about things uh, that are negatives. I mean, it doesn't mean that they don't have growth, uh, of seeing that they could have better responses or learn more things about how their older members would handle different things, and gain a lot of experience like that, like becoming a scientist in a particular laboratory. Uh, you know, uh, um, and actually, all humans now, uh, that are still thirsty, are in a sense like putting their application out for uh, having tasks in the next level in a laboratory of the next level. You know how fast that can happen is it's that's between the individual and the older member that they're choosing to reach up to.
Got quite a bit going on in the chat there.
Yeah, Joseph, hello, Joseph Coates.
Hello, Joseph.
Yeah, we're well enough, even though we're tormented every day by different things that are happening. But that's part of the growth, right? If we didn't have those things,
If we
what else would we be
just
doing?
have the growth, the lesson, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that.
Joseph loves the title of incorporating tea and dough into our everyday lives. The next level is real. It astounds me. Everyone can't see things that way. But I guess that's what gives life variety, even if bad. And says, I'm not super political at all, really, but the country seems to be talking and making fun of Charlie Kirk assassination. I'm curious if you have any thoughts about these recent events. And yeah, nobody deserves to be shot for their basic rights. It is kind of sad how we've gotten to this point. Hello, dead skin mask.
Oh yeah, that's that. That's what DSM stands for.
Oh, okay. Right, right. Your username reminds me of Legend of Zelda.
Before you
Yeah, I was just
go
gonna.
into that,
I was
like,
reading all his things because they're all in a row there.
yeah, they're all one thought. Joseph, I think that I don't know if you heard the one time that we were talking about this movie that we watched called The Bishop's Wife. Um,
The Bishop's Wife, right?
I think you'd enjoy that movie.
Yeah, there were a lot of lesson things in there.
And it was fun
Next
to
level kind of thinking.
yeah, it was fun to watch it like with a next level understanding. And like that was one of the like things that Doe T and Doe would have you guys do when you watch movies is to
Mm-hmm.
think, not all the time but sometimes think about it with your next level. Like I remember in one tape Doe saying, read the red letters in the Bible but with your next level understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
anyway, I'm sorry. I
No,
just
that's
thought
good.
that'd be interesting. I didn't know if he heard about that movie. You can
Yeah.
get it on Prime. It's included on Prime, Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's
It's an
from
old movie.
1948.
1948, I think it was.
It's interesting how many things started right around that time. And, I mean,
Excuse me.
like proportionate and relative to next level and increased understandings and challenges as well. That's when humans were really uh, primarily first introduced to physical beings from outside this planet, even though they could have been hiding inside the planet. I mean, some of them being the ones that were the space alien uh, human equivalent vehicles. They would talk about them that way as human equivalents because the space aliens, by their minds, are also have a variety of different individuals that are uh, have different degrees of thirst for uh, I don't know because it even extends to the differences between those that left the next level's classroom, the graduation classroom, and that includes me. And and yet some of those, um, well, I guess, sustain a certain amount of next level mind to where they don't go against the next level's um, existence and definition, and in terms of how Tiendo brought that reality to us. And and then there's others that, even if they say things that are seemingly against the next level's reality, doesn't mean that they've totally lost it or not. But so the next level is the judge of everybody anyway, so it doesn't really matter to us unless we're try to stick closer to what they actually said and did, as opposed to finding fault with them in ways that are not accurate, but are a lesser perspective of what their reality was about, pertaining to their own experiences. I'm being general on purpose, but because I don't want to spend the rest of the stream talking about the details of what I just said, if it made any sense to anybody. But so yeah, yeah. I don't think Kathy and I want to get trying into the details about the whole experience of Charlie Kirk being assassinated And but I'm just going to say for myself is that I didn't agree with that much of what he would say, but I also don't agree with that much of what some of those that were in opposition to him would say. And so, it's like pick and choose each item.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, I think the main point is that it's not okay to kill somebody because you don't agree with what they're saying.
I agree with that 100%.
Like, nobody should be losing their life because of what they believe in, no matter what it is. I think
Right,
that's the takeaway.
right. And
That
to
I think
talk about
everybody
it,
should be able to agree on that.
yeah, to wish other people dead, to me, that's lower forces completely.
It's pretty heinous.
It's not really something that a human is capable of doing unless they've allowed themselves to go down that dark road. And that's more like animalistic behavior. Because humans are animals, as Doe talks about briefly, just mentions in 785 again. Uh, um, but they're animals that have the potential uh, to begin to move into next level thinking and behaviors and ways. And and that usually comes when people, have difficult circumstances that challenge them. And yeah, so lines are being drawn, and people are making their choices on where to stand. And it's very difficult to be in tune with it enough to watch what's going on and not be well. I don't mean sucked in, but sucked into the negativity of it that grows and grows and can freak you out. Like this morning, I woke up and I just felt like uh, I felt terrible mentally. I just felt like there was all kinds of negativity around me, and I wasn't necessarily tuning into the to what thoughts were actually coming, but I identified it with all the people that are having negative thoughts around us in the media, and when we listen to it, because I listen to it all the time, because I want to know what's going on. I don't listen to it because I'm enjoying what's going on. The only thing I enjoy about it is when I see somebody um, striving to be more objective instead of like taking sides in an equation. And and I have heard from some people in the media that that to me are attempting to be objective, and it's hard. It's hard to be objective because the lower forces, you know, and that's talking about all the deceased humans, and then the thoughts around us. There's more actual volume of people that are negative, but the people that are good or have goodness in them, relative to the next level's idea of what goodness is, um, uh, their goodness is greater than the amount of individuals that are being the instruments of negativity, because goodness is more powerful, because it's next level mind. It's true. It's real. It's not. You're not wondering if the next level is has a conspiracy to get you to think a certain way. They don't need you to think a certain way. They don't care. I mean, it's not that they don't care. That's not the right way to say that, I don't think. they don't uh, push it upon people to think a certain way. They know that the individual has to gravitate to wanting their mind, wanting to know the truth about something, wanting to know what's real and what's not real, wanting to know where they fit in or can fit in what's more real, and working in that direction. Um, Working in that direction comes in two forms. It's by dealing with lessons and by giving service to the next level according to what they have decided was service. And that's why, and people that don't have that mind in them enough in that department of understanding uh, may not be able to see um, that simple definition of what the next level would consider to be service. Because it's not simple to apply it, but it's simple to understand that it's being of service is um, well, the highest service I can imagine is seeking to um, get out the information that Tiendo left behind. Because look at how the world doesn't really want that to happen. And if they can't stop it from happening because the next level is not allowing them to have that much power at the time, uh, even though they still try to do it, but they don't necessarily accomplish it to the degree that they want to. I know they don't, but because the next level isn't ready for them to be able to accomplish that, because the next level knows there's still thirsty souls out there seeking to learn what's true, what's being revealed, what has been revealed, and what is continuing to be revealed as more and more reality, more and more what is true, more and more what is actually the case, the facts, the real facts. Not I'm not talking about facts in the human kingdom. I'm talking about the facts of the next level's kingdom, and that that T and Do were the representatives from that kingdom that went back into a previous kingdom level of life, the human kingdom, which would be like a human going back into taking a dog vehicle in order to talk with the other dogs and tell them about the human kingdom. And and even though that probably can have its own equivalency relative to that kingdom level of mind, uh, um, there's a lot more facility that a human has that an animal doesn't have. And Do talks about this in tape 785 as well, tiny bit. Just gives a couple of keywords here and there that really signal a whole bunch of thinking. And trying to describe um, thirstiness. Let me go back to the chat because I could keep on going on and on and on. Bizarre world we're living in. Yes. Casey Strange is here, and I skipped over. Let me see. They did that to Jesus. I'm sorry, but it's true. Yeah, they did. I'm very angry about it personally, but I'll say no more. Love you too. Um, yeah, I would just, you know, for whatever it's worth, suggest that, uh, which is the same thing for me, uh, that ask T and Do for help to re- redirect the emotions that surface as anger uh, into wanting to know how T and Do think about things. And the biggest application of that is, like Kathy does all the time. She puts on a tape. Um, Even if it's, some people put on a tape because Doe's voice calms them, and I get that. When we put on the tape a 785, right away I was in a higher state of mind, a better state of mind. I didn't feel like I had, like a weight on top of my head trying to put me down, even though I wasn't really having thoughts in particular of being a downer. I was kind of seeing things as hopeless and with certain circumstances, and uh, and didn't feel like there was any positive, uh, you know, in it. Even though I knew I wasn't even that conscious at the moment that I was in it. Um, but when the tape went on, then now I was in Doe's mind. I mean, because I was, Kathy and I were as we're listening. If we want to know what he's saying, and we're not like judging every sentence and every word, and even though that can happen, but we don't let that distract us. So block it out as soon as possible. Uh, if we've gotten past the influences that would have us be afraid of doing that, uh, then we're going to be opening ourselves up to his mind at that moment, and it becomes a living. It's a living matter. It's a plasma kind of. Thoughts are like spirits are composed of like a plasma condition. I think thoughts are. I don't know if thoughts are considered to be like a plasma, like Doe would say when he would talk about plasma. Uh, he didn't talk about it much, but he just used that definition to help us see the physicality of it more in a context that is what scientists on Earth say is the fourth state of matter. I think, if I remember correctly. And who knows? There could be other. He was saying it's like that. He wasn't even trying to say that it was exactly that.
Well, we were listening to that one gal yesterday, Arizona Wilder. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, she was the interview with David Icke. It's on YouTube. It's interesting. From 1990 something. Late 1990s. 98 is when he published it in a book or something. So definitely.
Do you want to give any like synopsis of it or
I
a
got
few
20
thoughts about
minutes.
it?
I got 20 minutes of eating time left, so I'm
Oh,
gonna
okay.
grab a little bag of chips and go in the bedroom and eat it. So I'm not doing ASMR on the. Unless you guys want to hear me crunching on the thing.
I don't mind if you're crunching.
No, I'm not doing that. I'll go crunch in the bedroom for a
XF says
second.
something about the Phoenix incident. Let me see. Maybe I don't want to skip over. Uh, Stephen N says it all feels so heavy. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. It's very heaviness. Seriousness, heaviness, and I don't mean to be like I don't vibrate on negative things, but it's what we need to some degree to experience. But that doesn't mean that we have to keep on staying with it. I mean, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with somebody wanting to drop out, but if they just drop out of society and don't know about it, what's going on, uh, um, Well, they may not be building their minds stronger to deal with it and deal with it, try to deal with it the way that um, members of the Creator's kingdom of this planet and the life forms on it would deal with it. Would hope that we would strive to deal with it in the way that they would have us deal with it. Now, sometimes that means, you know, uh, not delving into it, not digging for, not pertaining, not knowing about certain things, right? But uh, but that can be like even, it doesn't mean that doesn't have to be like months and months. I don't think it has to have any necessarily pre- precise time frame of not dealing with stuff. Take breaks, do something fun. Put your focus on something that uh, doesn't uh, feel so heavy. And I know you don't need me to suggest things like that, but because you know that's why there's a rise in addictions. That's why there's a rise in those same behaviors that bring about that heaviness and despair and hopelessness and and hate. Hate is disease, and unless it's hate of the primitiveness of the society, when hate becomes their justification. Uh, um, it's a real sorry state of affairs for the individuals that succumb to it to the degree to where they become an activist to support uh, one direction of the hate or multi directions of the same hate. You can have some people that are, you know, um, hate the government so that uh, they want to do something to change it. I mean, and then you see where a lot of times circumstances come about that can even be manipulated, whether it's manipulated by humans or it's manipulated by space alien souls that are manipulating humans to think in certain directions so that those humans will respond to certain things in ways that uh, they think are just, like building the security state bigger and bigger because of and cracking down on people for less and less uh, to have less and less freedom to uh, to express themselves because they equate it to being like yelling fire in a crowded theater when there's no fire. Well, look at how many people think there's a fire in the theater of the human kingdom, right? And so then they justify uh, whatever they have to do that they think is self-defense, and even aggressive self-defense of like what the United States did to Iraq, where they made the story up. They decided to look at things in a certain way to convince people, to convince some people that took very little convincing that there could potentially be a atomic bomb blown up right outside in the Atlantic Ocean area, right off the coast of Washington D.C. And so I remember that Hillary Clinton was you know, talking about that as happening, and and so justifying uh, going in to take over that country, right, and then make it into a puppet government, and then and get a lot of money from the oil because that's what they did. They ended up taking the oil wells for their corporate interests, and leaving some for the country itself, as long as they were making the profits from some of it, and other things and also having the geography of having bases in the area. So that's all. The lower forces, even though the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls aren't necessarily wanting uh, wars, but except for the mentality that it's the greater good, and so collateral damage is necessary for the greater good. And there's been people, in the so-called Christian community that have that same belief. In fact, somebody, which I haven't looked this up yet, was saying that Jesus was against killing even for self-defense. And of course, that's been made into this thing that, that even some evangelicals talk about, saying that they have a problem with in vitro fertilization because the lab person that's implanting the fetus, the eggs, into the receiver, the human individual that's going to be the mother to those eggs, um, uh, uh, knows that some of the eggs that they're planting uh, are going to die. And if they don't die, then that person, those eggs that did attach to the uterine wall, would grow to be people, be humans, right? And so they think that um, they're taking it upon themselves to allow those eggs to be destroyed. And I'm thinking, holy smokes, isn't that crazy? I mean, that's like saying that if a male, um, well, that's like saying that a woman that goes through her period every month, and some people actually think this, are are losing eggs. Their eggs are dying, and that those eggs should be fertilized. You know, so because they think that the ultimate uh, um, thing that makes them good humans is to have children. And, uh, even with the thinking that those children are who are going to take care of you when you're dead, when you're old. That's some of the practical reasons why people want to have children, and have companionship when they're old, and support them when they're old if they can't support themselves, or because of illnesses that they have. And that's none of that is from the minds of members of the next level. They don't. Uh, they design these systems of reproduction to have a human kingdom, but they don't need to have billions and billions and billions of humans in order to have enough of the human genome in vehicles that can develop mind that becomes an evolution of thought towards learning to recognize that there's even a kingdom above the human kingdom. That's not just like another space alien race of humans that have human families on different planets, because that does happen, even though they might not be defined as humans if they didn't have the lower forces to deal with, like has happened on Earth, because humans is a particular definition of a species that has been grown with tremendous negativity around them, where you can have planets that don't have that negativity, and they become like a different species of advanced animal because they've got the ability to still draw in next level ideas, but they don't have that negative force like beating down on them to bring them down or keep them in the human kingdom and not outgrow it. Uh, and so, which is what took place here. It doesn't take place the same way on different planets unless that other planet also has that negative force to help those individuals growing in that condition, the plants, the human plants that we are, that these vehicles are. The minds aren't plant. Well, the minds are part of the plants, but the minds evolve beyond the plant mind. And you can see how that happens to where you've got many humans in the human kingdom that can recognize that they don't need a religious teaching to tell them that it's a less primitive way to be when you're not killing each other or calling for someone else to die because you don't like what they teach and you don't want uh, um, other people to be influenced by these people. And so, you know, they justify all kinds of things in order to keep people from learning the truth. And there's a lot of examples of that, but I'm not going to go through them right now. I'm going to go back to the chat. I see XF is saying some things. Yeah, DSM agrees with Casey. It's pretty disgusting. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are pretty disgusting. I agree with you. Um, but as DSM is saying, but people are checking themselves spiritually more and more now, it seems. Well, yeah, I think that's a good thing that can come out of it, and that also has its directions that can be just another avenue of illusion. But certainly, the idea of mentally seeking to, find something that's greater than delving into all the disgusting stuff that's most disgusting. But it can be pretty disgusting from those point of view if we get to a place where in our minds we are equivalent to the gods, or and we're and we're then we can be mutating backwards as well of that illusion. I've talked about that a lot of times, and so I'm not going to spend any time on that right now. But you read 88 Update, UFO 2 and their crew, which is in the Heaven's Gate book. You'll see a little bit about Doe talking about that. And it doesn't take a lot to get his point of view and to begin to and also in other tapes, it's talked about. You might have to search the tape logs for that information. And I tell you, uh, if you have a way to get a hold of the tape logs, get a hold of them because
You need to.
we don't know if they'll always be available. There's a there's only so far I'm going to go. Uh, so XF says part one. It says, I recently rewatched the 2015 film The Phoenix Incident, which is a pseudo-documentary based on the Phoenix Lights in 1997.
Yeah, we just watched it too. Remember?
Yeah, we did. And then he says, part two, there's a cult leader named Walton Gayson. Did you read that one? Did you watch that one? Did we? They base on Doe and borrow some Heaven's Gate terminology to give the impression that this character is, as Wikipedia calls him, a Heaven's Gate believer. I know what you're talking about. I'm going to read the rest of what you're saying before I comment about this. And XF says, I agree about calmness when listening to the tapes. Listening to T and Doe does bring me a sense of serenity. Sometimes it's like a breath of cool and fresh air on a hot, humid day in a sense. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, so before I get into Warrior of Truth, I do want to comment on Gayson because I first became aware of this individual who I believe is a made-up individual, and the implication that this was Doe with the disappearance that they were tying together with the disappearance of four, I think, college-age male students. I'm just describing it that way because that's what happened, I think, which might have been an event that happened in the somewhere, I believe, south of Phoenix, and it was interesting that it was right at the time when this happened that I believe the class had moved from the Manzano area of New Mexico, where they were building the Earthship, and they moved to Phoenix. Now I don't know if they moved to Phoenix or because previously we lived in Scottsdale and Paradise Valley, because there was well, that was just the areas where T and Doe would gravitate to the areas that were generally more well-to-do in a city to live, and and a lot of times to big homes, to where they could be hidden from other people. Even if it's behind a gate, a wall, like we had in one property in Paradise Valley, Arizona, so that nobody could see how many people were in the van that was going back and forth in and out of that location. And, because, because in those days, as well as these days, if you had, if the neighbors saw a lot of people coming and going from what was considered to be a single family residence, they would, be suspicious. And I think now more so, even. I think you would have more people, calling authorities and saying things about some suspicious behavior in the neighbor's house if they kept on seeing, people that even looked the same, or, and were wearing the same kind of clothing and, you know, so anyway, which I could talk about a lot in relationship to the classroom and how it was actually true that T and Doe had to work very hard to stay out of the thoughts of the neighbors in these developments where we lived, um, so that they wouldn't interfere with us. Anyway, so Gayson, it was interesting that name, and I remember I wrote about this on my blog. If you search my blog at Heaven WordPress sawyerhg.wordpress.com for the word Gayson, Gayson, you'll see a whole bunch of a number of posts that even involved what I suspected at the time was false websites that were made to look like they were a TV station. I'm not saying that it wasn't a legitimate name of a TV station, you know, in the Phoenix area, but what they made it into was a location to post certain stories that were surrounding this guy Gayson, and in some ways tying it into being a story about Doe. And I don't know if that was the time period when Doe actually left, and I, 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 I don't know if he went to Mexico or where he went to have the operation. Um, he was, he had his vehicle surgically changed. So, but because I remember meeting with at the Geraldo show in New York City on the set when Geraldo was doing a show about UFOs, and I was one of the panelists among 10 other people, I think. And I was in the back of the staging area behind the stage where people were waiting to go on the stage. And what was his name? I forgot his name right now. But he told me that he had met Doe and that Doe was a janitor, and and that he liked him, and he told him things that he then when after they left, and this was obviously before they left, and and he recognized after he left that he actually started writing about the things and meeting Doe, and he got uh, some misunderstandings about what Doe was saying. If he did actually meet Doe when Doe was, because Doe, I believe, did the same thing that he expected. No, not expected. The same things that he gave instructions for others that wanted that operation to do. Uh, um, of go to another town and get a job to pay for that operation, and not be under the influence of the classroom during that time, so that and that would take place probably over some months. I don't know how long it took for Alex Odie and Vern Odie, but so I knew that it was possible that he did meet Doe, and that Doe, because Doe talked about at one point while I was still in the classroom that uh, he didn't want to be the one that was just living off of the earnings of the class members. And so he thought maybe he could get a job. And I remember when, like Norodi and a few others that were actually voices for my thoughts as well, said, "No, Doe, we don't want you to have a job. We need you to teach the classroom." Uh, you know that was an appropriate way of expressing yourself to your older member. I mean, if the older member really wanted to do that and felt like he had instructions to do it, then the class members wouldn't say it that way if he had presented it in that way. But in this tape, 785, just so happens to be talking about how he didn't feel like he had instructions. I'm going to get right to where he says. He opens up the talk with saying uh, that he knows that some of you all in the class are curious about what's going on in links. And by using the word links, he's referring to the quarters that he and he had at the time, because he was our link to T, who was also our link to the next level, uh, as pieces of pipe in the chain of mind, chain of thinking, chain of behaviors and ways. Okay, so and then he said in a real silly voice, and you two are darn curious, sounding silly, and then the class was laughing. And then he says that, and then I'm describing that because I was there at the time. Uh, that I remember watching classmates going in and out of his quarters, because this is after T was gone for a number of years already, 8 years already by then at a time, in 1993, and and I think they had like furniture sometimes they were bringing in, and so I was just curious about what was happening, but I didn't know, and it wasn't my business to get involved because the next level, it's they're organized. They do a lot of different tasks, and if you're not involved with that task, then you have no business being involved with that task. It's like somebody that's in a laboratory for genetic engineering and somebody that's in a laboratory for, um, you know, using chemical. Well, I don't know. There could be relationships, of course. In the military, let's say, developing weapons, they're not going to know what each other is doing, unless, of course, they're going to use genetic materials as a weapon, which they potentially do. Anyway, I'm not going to get onto that because that would get us into that interview with David Icke, where this person that was, I guess, a young person, maybe even a child of some age, was groomed with other kids to be, what would you say,
A robot, a slave?
to be a slave to them?
I guess so.
Yeah. Well, a slave to produce babies, you think? Produce eggs?
I don't know. I don't really have any thoughts on that right at this
All
moment.
right. Well, it seemed to have relationships to that. It seemed like very close to the things
No, it
that
was.
space aliens we know
No,
are
it's
doing.
it's Illuminati
Yes, but
stuff.
that's
So a lot of it
related
is
to it.
sexual abuse of children. So like children, as far as my understanding, I don't. You're not viable until after your period. I don't know if you can harvest eggs from children, but to me, I don't know. I don't know if any. I don't
I
know.
don't know what age you're talking about in that regard. But anyway, I'm just saying
She
young
was
people.
she was bred. This woman says that she was bred to
Hmm.
be what whatever they do with kids of those bloodlines. She was talking about the bloodlines. Like I said, I don't really want to. People can go watch the interview themselves. I don't know if I believe. It doesn't matter if I believe it or not, but
Well, I believed enough of what she was saying. Um, to, but there were things that she was saying that I knew that, well, I felt like I could be wrong about. But it felt like to me were um, uh, extending her understanding in ways that might have reality to them, but aren't uh, directly uh, real. And but so I can't talk about it any more than that because I don't have it in front of me right now with the examples. What was the name of that? Oh, that was the interview with
All you have to put in
what's
is
her name again?
Arizona Wilder
Arizona Wilder.
interview with David Icke.
Interview with David Icke.
It'll come right up.
Um, but we know for a fact, if we believe what Tiendo said, and we believe it, and we feel like we not only believe it, but we know it to be true to some degree, that the aliens have been involved in hybridization of the species. And so, since we know the aliens are overall the corral keepers of humans in different countries, so it's like a whole bunch of different corrals, and the whole human kingdom is like one big corral relative to the next level. Um, uh, then we see the way that the ones that become the leaders and the rich and the, you know uh, in those communities that have the most influence over humans become distorted in their views and their activities to even have rituals that are crazy. And for whatever reason, they have rituals, or they even fabricate ideas around rituals and things, and they even use it against, to make it look like the real teachings, like from Jesus, are phony, and they've got a better view of things, and that the aliens actually created the human kingdom, and you can extend it, keep on going with it, to where it's basically space alien worship, even though whether by name or uh, um, by theory, because there's been a lot of contactees that have had were abducted in different ways, and I don't doubt that, and Doe certainly didn't doubt it, and knew that it was the case that these hybridization experiments were going on, and that's breeding. Breeding is something that uh, is a, that the lower forces, the space alien souls, are propagating humans to do, thinking that they're well, I don't know how they're thinking exactly, but they get that because they see that the next level that they were once a part of, some of them to some degree in elementary service, uh, do on the human planet, because the humans are being bred by the next level, but the humans, the next level, are the creators of the species. The space aliens are not the creators of the species, even if they mix their sperm and eggs together, in order, and then have those babies that come from that, live with them on their spacecrafts, or put them back on Earth in order to become their emissaries, with their spiritual ideas of everybody being a god, and technology being the route to heaven on earth, and the whole idea of heaven on earth. I heard a Christian saying that we can choose to have heaven or hell on earth. We can't have heaven on earth because it's a there's no possibility of that, because heaven actually means out in outer space. It's the elevated areas above the earth where the sun and the moon and the stars are. That's all the heavens, the literal heavens. That word has been used in the context of the religion, but that didn't mean it was wrong to do that, because that was the only way they could think about it at that time, in a practical way that they could identify that there's this kingdom. And you hear many Christians have said to me through the internet conversations that the word kingdom was used, it's from the Greek word bastille. Uh, I'm not pronouncing it right in the Greek because there's variations of it, but which which is actually talking about uh, the way that humans have a king and a queen and the princes and the princesses and then the serfs, and, the supporters of the community and the people that are growing the food and doing all that, and the army and the military. So that's the kingdom, right? But some Christians think that that word only meant the authority of heaven, which it does mean the authority, but that's what happens when thoughts get mutated into only a little piece of the truth, when the reality of it is lost. The fact that it's a many-membered kingdom, which is what T and Do clarified, right in 1975, that the next level above human was actually uh, um, better, more accurate terminology, because it is like a different dimension, but it's not a different dimension lacking physicality. In fact, it's got more degrees of physicality than the human kingdom. It's got all the ones in the human kingdom as well as theirs, but they don't operate. They don't have human flesh vehicles because they don't digest food and they don't have reproduction, and so that's part of a different kingdom level of life. Like animals, like humans don't have, generally speaking, don't have sharp teeth to tear at food. Like a dog does most of the time. You know, um, so uh, so next level members have vehicles that don't have things that humans have. That's what I was saying with that. But Gason, I mean, the story uh, leads one to Gason being in that place in Phoenix, near Phoenix. That's the maximum security prison. I forgot what it was called.
There's probably maybe a couple. There's one out in Buckeye.
I don't know. You
In
know more
Goodyear.
about which ones there are, but
Mm-hmm.
there's one that's definitely, I don't know, it's big
Mm-hmm.
and it's maximum security. But supposedly Gason was in that, and somehow he got out, according to the story, and he escaped, and he ended up going to San Diego or L.A. or something, and he had some kind of apartment there, and he was doing these things and saying these things, and somehow he was involved in either starting a fire in that apartment, and and there was and and so there was a whole bunch of stuff with that I knew had no relationship at all with Doe, but there was these implications that some they were making with that, and I talked about it. Maybe even in a live stream. Well, no, probably not. I don't know if I made a video about it, but I definitely talked about it on my blog. And somebody that was frequenting my blog at the time uh, told me that that was all a fabricated story, and that person was actually, according to his what he said, and even his address that he used for his email related to the WordPress account that he had, was related to NASA, the National Aeronautics Space Administration. And that he told me that, he really couldn't say any more than that about it. And that's the last I heard from him. Um, so I don't know who started that hoax. That I didn't know it made it to a video. So that's part two of the Phoenix incident, I think XS was saying. I want to watch that. So Warrior of Truth says, I believe in the next level, but I would think if some had some special insight, to be certain they would do everything in their power to make it. But I don't necessarily see it happening. I'm going to continue to look into it, but I fail to see anything all that different about how even the class lived, aside from believing more. And of course, being in the presence of Doe, thanks so much, Sawyer and Kathy Insights. And T respectfully. Yeah, I think it's great to keep on looking into it. And then XF says, yes, Walter Gayson is a fictional character from the Phoenix incident. After film's end credits, Gayson, dressed like Doe with a shaved head, lights himself on fire via gasoline. See? That's right. He lit himself on fire, according to this story. So that's where that came from. And, but I don't think that TV station, a web address, was, maybe it was part of that same incident. And somebody was just sending that to me to suggest that that was true. Ah, so that kind of opens the door to me having a potential greater understanding of what happened during that time. And that was like 2010 or something like that.
Warrior of Truth, I'm not really sure what what your question is. You say you believe in the next level, but you would think if some had some special insight, to be certain they would do everything in their power to make it, but you don't necessarily see it happening. I'm not. Are you saying that if somebody had some special insight and that they believed in the next level, that they would do everything in their power to make it to the next level, but you don't see that happening? So I'm not sure if you're talking about us, which would be absolutely accurate. I don't have any special insight, but I would imagine that Sawyer has special insight because he was in the group for 19 years. And I don't know if that's what you're saying or not.
Well, I thought that you might have been saying that as well. I just didn't really
And
feel
that
like I wanted to.
you fail to see anything all that different about how even the class lived aside from believing more. Well, I mean, we wouldn't even know about it if the class hadn't existed. So that's how they live differently than us. So there's that. You wouldn't believe in the next level because you wouldn't even know that terminology without T and Doe to bring it. So that's what they did differently. And the class, it's I guess it's the same as like if you really believe in you know, let's take Catholics. You know, you really believe in that way of believing, but you just believe it. You don't go out and be a priest. There's some people that are called to live it with their whole lives and be priests and dedicate themselves to that. And that's what the group did with their understanding that T and Doe brought to them of the next level. That's the difference, in my opinion. I think that's what you were asking.
Right.
So I wanted to address that.
Yeah, no,
All
I'm
right.
glad you did. I I'll put some more thoughts to it a little bit, and that is Um, if somebody believes in the next level, then they believe in T and O.
Yeah, you wouldn't be questioning. That's the
Then they
whole
wouldn't
point.
be caring about what somebody else did or didn't do in relationship to what T and O were teaching for people to grow towards. Because it's not the same for everybody at the same time. Because everybody's not capable of getting into the same program at the same time. Uh, um, because it's not offered to everybody at the same time because the next level can't they only have positions for so many new members of the next level. Sure, they can make more positions if everybody decided to.
Well, I think they don't ever want another Lucifer and a third of their numbers to have to get by.
Yeah, well, that right. So they're cultivating the whole human kingdom, and they're gonna because souls take at least in this civilization a number of incarnations in order to develop enough strength of mind to combat the very, very serious, strong influence of the space alien souls. And yes, living it is very important. And but what living it actually means is separating from our humanness. And there's nothing stopping anybody from separating from their humanness, and that doesn't mean going off and killing yourself, not at all. It means um, uh, learning what that means and not being a part of it. And there's an example in this tape of how Steele Odie, one of the students, had wrote to Doe about how uh, he went with a coworker, I think, or it was the manager of the
It just
department.
sounded like a coworker.
Yeah, in a car. They had to go someplace together, maybe to do some kind of technical. He was involved with computers and networking and stuff. So, and so he drove in the car with this other person, and the person wanted to smoke cigarettes. And Steele Odie said that he didn't, I don't know what he said exactly, but he didn't approve of it. He didn't like it or something, and he didn't smoke. And so the person just rolled the window down, I guess, and smoked. And Doe said that, you know, if he would have known that at the time, I mean, he said that even at the time, he would have uh, talked to the person in a smiling on the face kind of way, not angry or telling them something. But even if he lost his job because he didn't want to be around somebody that was smoking, that would be him sticking to his guns. Not sticking to his guns, that's not the right terminology, but sticking to his beliefs because smoking wasn't part of next level classroom behavior because there aren't people in the next level that smoke. Okay, and you were in the classroom that was trying to duplicate the behavior in the next level so that the souls will have that mind strength of getting rid of those human behaviors in order to be able to actually take over and operate a next level grown vehicle. So, uh, so everything we overcome in the human kingdom goes towards building our minds stronger so that we can be in a place to where eventually in a classroom with older members bringing their truth to that society and then experiencing what that's like to believe in it and leave everything behind even like Jesus started but that T and O required but didn't require for us now, because we're the humans that weren't in the classroom. And you can, if you listen to enough tapes, you'll see where there's a distinguishing characteristics of things that are different for humans than they are for the next level. And that's where the whole position against the S word comes from, which is a document on the Heaven's Gate website that is prominent, that talks about, you know, leaving by one's own hand uh, in two different ways, relative to them and relative to humans.
There's another comment that just came out from Behind the Sun.
Oh, really? Oh,
They're
wow.
they're naming it Swan 25B, and it's going to be closest to Earth in October, the same time that Atlas is going to be here.
Oh, is that right? Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Same time that Atlas is going to be behind the sun, they're going to be closest to Earth, then, right?
No,
Or closest to the sun?
BP Earthwatch is saying that they're both going to be in their closest at the same time in October.
Wow.
Whatever.
There you go, two again. We saw a number of examples of two comets every time around April,
23 million
March or
miles.
April it would happen for a number of years in a row. It doesn't seem to be happening now, but maybe it is going to happen again. But this time in October, which is, that's more the harvest time. Spring is when you do the planting and for a lot of plants, right? And the harvest time for plants is generally in the October time. So now they're doing. This is just my interpretation of that. They're showing us signs and markers, because they're not just signs. They're actually marking time periods of changes and adjustments, and so there's nothing stopping anybody from developing Tiando's mind within them and behaviors and ways. It's all up for grabs, and if somebody else isn't doing it, uh, it makes it easier when there's other people doing it, right? Because we can say, like, it was easier for me to be in the classroom and maintain, because it's like, let's say you have an addiction to alcohol, and it's easier to maintain sobriety when you're not going to the bars. That was another thing that was brought up in this 785 tape, that Alex Odie in his job ended up being in a meeting with other members of the crew, and they were in a bar, and he didn't like it. And and it's not that Alex Odie would make it stink about it or get angry about it, to where they would see that he was angry or anything like that. But it wouldn't be wrong for him to, say something, to not be in that circumstance. I don't know if Alex Odie was an alcoholic. I don't. I don't before he joined, but it didn't matter, because uh, alcohol is a I mean, I'm not saying that there's not a. Yeah, everything in this kingdom is an opportunity, and everything in this kingdom probably has its abuses and misuses, and some things that are addictive about it. But then there's degrees in which it's not really much of a problem for anybody. So. But in the classroom, everything had to go. See, that's what we're talking about. It was graduation time for those souls that had taken vehicles that recognized that that was the place to be. That's where they wanted to be. They recognized the truth. They recognized their older member's mind. And in that way, they recognized their older member, because they were revealed during the time that T&O came public. That was the revealing that Luke was talking about, in my opinion. let me go to that. It says in Luke 17:30, even thus shall it be in the day, which means period of time, or even in the terms of the next level, in the 1,000-year period, when the Son of Man is revealed. And if you go to the definition of that word, reveal from the Greek is from the Greek word apokalyptu. Apokalyptu. And that's rooted in 575, which is from the Greek Strong's Concordance numbering system. That's the apo part, which the apple part with that word apokalyptu is where you have the idea of something that was hidden being shown.
What was the word again?
Apokalyptu. And the spelling is Apokalupto. But let me look at 2572 quickly. 2572 in the reference. See if I got that right. 2572. Right, it's the kaluptu part that means cover or hide. Veil, to hinder the knowledge of a thing. Okay,
Veil.
is part of that.
Veil?
Yeah, veil. Veil.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and the apple part is 575. When it's used in a conjunction, it has to do with separation, uh, separation of a part from the whole, any kind of separation of one thing. So the great separator, it's interesting that that's a key word. It's also a physical, used as a physical of distance of place. What does it say in terms of being a conjunction? It's a preposition. State of separation that is of distance, physical of distance of place, temporal of distance of time, of origin, of the place whence anything is comes, befalls, is taken. So that's relative to the hiding of it. So you're being separated from the hiding. That means things are being revealed. That's why they came up with that word reveal in English. And using the actually is like saying that it's something that was hidden in the past, and now it's being revealed, the truth about it. Which you go over to the other use of that word, which is the word revelation. In Revelation 1:1, it uses the word revelation in English, but it's from the word apocalypsis, the same word. And it means laying bare, making naked, a disclosure of truth, instruction concerning things before unknown, used of events by which things or states or persons hereto withdrawn from view are made visible to all, manifestation, appearance. So we can think about all the things that have happened since the class left, especially, even though there's been plenty of things that happened before that time as well, but to where things were hidden that got revealed. Uh, but that doesn't mean that all the people recognize the truth about something that's being revealed. And so what you had is the growth of conspiracy theories, right? And so, like, one of the big things that was revealed before the class left was space aliens among humans on the planet. You know, spacecrafts that could defy all the physics that humans had at the time. Um, and that's what T and Do said about it, is that that was being revealed to humans so that humans would have the evidence of that reality. And then they hid it. And now you see it talked about all the time as real events, but they still, in the mainstream, they still keep it as like secretive, right? And but what that does is that allows uh, humans to choose to to recognize more and more where the truth lies about the story. So, uh, and it's the same way with next level information. Um, you know, we don't get it all at once, and those that weren't in the classroom or that left the classroom left for reasons, lessons to learn. Whether whether they could learn that lesson by leaving and then the next level of bringing back that soul to take a vehicle to learn those lessons better, or learning it right now. I mean, lessons on how to overcome negative things that are defeating us, trying to defeat us. That can be a big one. There's people that go crazy. I felt this morning like uh, I started to identify with some of the things that Kathy sometimes experiences.
Oh
Of
no.
something, I just don't want to think about that anymore because I feel like it's really disturbing my mind.
I've been going insane.
Yeah, and it's
But I'm menopause.
yeah. Well, I'm 74, so maybe I've got some forms of that too.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and you could be like, you know, my hormones are probably affecting yours.
well, yeah, that too. Yeah, I hear you. But anyway, so we all get uh, challenges. There's no question about it. And and believing in Tiendo is actually a process that can keep on growing. But if we cut it off and think that there's nothing that we can do to grow it because there's nobody forming a group or anything and living exactly the way they live, then we're going to miss out if we on that lesson opportunity. We might get that lesson opportunity in the future if the next level decides to save that soul for a future opportunity, or even within the human kingdom next year, or you never can tell when we're going to get our lessons, especially if we're asking, because we're not going to we're still going to get the lessons regardless of what we ask, but we won't know that the lessons coming from the next level if we're not asking for, if we're not asking the representatives from the next level for that help. Uh, but we might know that we might say that it's coming from God or something like that, and it might be true. It might be coming from the next level through the understanding that that person has about what God is. That uh, I mean, I mean, if you're like Kathy talked about, she's a good example of a number of these things, these ideas, because when she was growing up, at one point when she was a teenager, she experienced going to a school that was a Christian school.
It wasn't actually in a church.
It was in a church.
Yeah, it was more of a church that started a little school.
Right. And and if I remember correctly, and she can correct me if I'm not stating it correctly, there were things that the head preacher that she respected a lot would say sometimes that she would have questions about and would ask that she wasn't getting what she felt were satisfactory answers from.
Well, no, that's not true. I mean,
About Judas
well, yeah, that was more
and
of
some other things too.
just that I was asking questions that I don't know that anybody had ever asked them before.
Right, right,
And they just didn't know how to respond to that.
right.
So what impressed me was that they would actually listen to my questions and answer them, and even like later on come back to me with something
That's
because they had, you know,
a good sign.
looked it
Right,
up,
because
researched it
there's
more.
people that are Christians or Jews or Islam or whatever they're Hindu or Buddhist, whatever their religion is, or not even of any kind of religion, that seek to know how to do the right thing or to understand things that they don't understand, doesn't make sense to them. And that happens with the T&O information all the time also, that people have questions about things that they were teaching and doing. But if they continue to want to know the truth about it, then the next level will see to it that they get exposed to things that can help them see more about their questions and answer some of those questions. And that's where we are now. So this, time period. Uh, I mean, if you're seeing something happening in the world and you really want to know
Excuse
the
me.
truth about it and how to think about it and what to do about it, if there's anything to do about it, then project your mind to the highest source you can imagine in the universe existing that created the planet and the life forms on it. And I'm adding that little part because I think that's kind of important to identify that source not just being a blob of a cosmic consciousness, but being embodied in beings that created the physical universe because they are also physical and mental. And so they created a universe a solar system and a planet and the life forms on it that have a physical and a mental composition. Uh, and, uh, and emotions is all part of that. But anyway, so I suggest that's the best avenue to go in to grow by. And there's no group, uh, and I'm not uh, you know a leader in that regard. I'm a student trying to give my experience and my understanding and my beliefs about T and O to other people.
What's going on in the chat?
Okay. Okay, chat. Oh, I see. In that film, there are scenes of the same style bunk beds and purple shrouds, as well, says XF, to what was seen in the Rancho Santa Fe mansion. All right, I'll look into that, I guess. Maybe I won't, but maybe I will. So anyway, so thanks for bringing that up, XF. So Megar 1989 says, "Hey, hope you're well. Glad to join the live. Usually I miss it. Well, glad to have you." And Joseph says, "Going to a video game tournament in an hour. Wish me luck to win 50 bucks. Ha ha. Yeah, sure. I hope you win." And Kathy sent her luck to Joseph. Have you guys heard the Drab Majesty album regarding the class? Yes, I liked that album, or parts of it. That was, they didn't seem to be. I mean, maybe there was some degrees of, making fun of the class or though in it. I don't even remember anymore that much about it. I just remember that it seemed to be at least objective, somewhat objective in the way that they presented it, which I like to see. I don't know if they've done anything recently. That was like 15 years ago that I remember seeing them. Joseph Coates says, yeah, that band, Drab Majesty, their first album was based on the Heaven's Gate group. Yes, that's, there were a few people that did some things. And still, not too many years ago, I still see people doing some things occasionally with music and lyrics and using images from the T and Do story. So Warrior Truth says, it seems the class stopped fasting, etc. At some point enjoyed the identity of being part of the class, which is very human indulgence, and the only thing to differentiate person. It seems the class stopped fasting, etc. At some point enjoyed the identity of being a part of the class.
It sounds like a lot of judgment.
It says then, it's not entirely clear to me. Thanks for the detailed response. I'll listen again when I get time. Oh,
There's
yeah,
a
but I don't want
there's
to
a
really
lot
go
of
there.
tapes to
But
listen to.
yeah,
A
but
lot of stuff
it's
to listen to.
yeah, I don't understand. Um, yeah, we stopped fasting and we started fasting and we stopped fasting and we started fasting. I don't know how many times. And Doe felt like sometimes it was good for the immune system to have experiences with different things to keep it as healthy as possible in these vehicles in this atmosphere that's a decaying atmosphere for as long as they needed to
Mm.
have vehicles to learn the lessons and do the service that they were performing for their older members. So, but so fasting isn't, from their perspective, like a ritual that you continue to do. That's going to develop your mind from doing. Uh, uh, there may be parts of your mind that can develop better when your chemistry isn't filled with the hormones from animal products. Okay, because uh, um, you know, I'm not saying there's not a truth to that. That in fact, that seems to be related to what the first food was given to humans, and as talked about in the writings of Moses in what's called the Book of Genesis. Um, that uh, you know food for those humans at that time, the species of humans that were developed before the Adam experiment started, was grains and seed-bearing foods. I think. I think it was grains, right? I don't know if I'm remembering it right, but But Doe felt like the grains. At one point, we were experimenting with not only strict fasting, like on water only, but for 13 days one time. But we were fasting on like having no animal products, a mucusless diet. So also no bread products, also no sugars, no refined sugars, only like sugars from like dates or raisins and things like that. And so those are all degrees of fast. You know, people talk about fasting in all different ways, so it's a very generalization. But I want to give you that much about it. And if anybody wants to see what the book that the class, Doe and the class at the time wrote, it was called The Transfiguration, and it's published. It was written and published by Doe and crew while I was there, and then it was sold to um, the School for Natural Healing uh, owner of that school, which is what's his name again? I forgot. David
Christopher?
Christopher. Yeah, because John Christopher was his dad, who the book he wrote. The books he wrote, Doe got a hold of and um, felt like he had instruction to adopt those fastings on an apple juice fast and the mucusless diet that came after a transition diet. And that I've maintained some parts of that diet, although I go off it all the time in degrees, but I can't go off it too much or I start to have mucus build up in my joints and and swelling because that's what happens to joints. That's one of the things that happens to them if they have too much of that uh, hard to digest materials going into us or things that we have allergic responses to, depending on our enzymatic action. Anyway, so XF says interesting that. But wait, one more thing on what Warrior Truth said is that the identity of being part of the class, yeah, sure, they enjoy the identity of being part of the class. I, I don't see that as a negative. It's not like they were, looking down on people. In fact, when we would go into the world and work jobs and things, I never felt like I was looking. I still don't walk around in the world or do jobs in the world making a judgment about people. I can I can tell that I've got triggers happening in my brain that want to judge people in different ways. But when I hear those thoughts, I cut them off. And sometimes I don't let them even form, even though I know what the idea is of that thought. I don't actually hear the words in my head of what that thought represents. And I cut it off. And so that's an exercise that people can do. And that's like with gender uh, judgmentalism. That's sexual preference judgmentalism. That's race identity. You know, racism and all the different ways that it takes place. Identity because the next level doesn't have race, and they don't have gender, and they don't have sexuality, and they don't have uh, um, politics. They don't have competition. They don't have. They don't manipulate people. They don't tell people what to do. Now, if they've got an experiment that they're working on that's got a whole bunch of instructions associated with it, just like in a lab in the human kingdom, uh, if someone's new into that lab, they have instructions on how to perform that experiment or how to change this or that or how to observe this or that and what what's important about all these things for what they're trying to accomplish with that laboratory. And so, but the members that are becoming part of that are like people that get a job in the world that really want to do a good job for their employer. They want to know what the employer has in store for them. Can teach them about how to do that good job. And then they can grow to that and they can even, you know, be an equal member in that lab, eventually. So that's what the next level was doing with the classroom that we see as the Heaven's Gate group. That was a laboratory, and T and Do were the lab instructors, and so they had very strict rules that if somebody didn't want to follow, then they would leave the lab. It didn't matter how seemingly small or big it was to not follow the rules. T and Do didn't want you there if you didn't recognize that all the rules were of value, no matter how small they were. And that's where, like Jesus said, that there wasn't going to be one jot or tittle of the law that was going to be uh, left out. All the things that are part of the next level's behaviors and ways, natural to the next level members, are going to be the things that humans have to grow to embrace if they want to someday graduate into membership in that next level. And so there's plenty of lessons. You can see what the lessons are in the major offense list and the lesser offense list that the class has posted on the Heaven's Gate website and is still being maintained by not me, but uh, other former members. Um, anyway, uh, so you can see for yourself the very long list of behaviors and ways to adopt in order to grow the mind strong enough to identify those the next time the lesson plan is available. Then it will be natural if some of those things aren't already adopted by individuals now that might be viewing those things. Um, then then at least they will know what the requirements are, the qualifications. This whole idea that belief alone gets you in the door. Well, it might at some stages. It might get you in the door depending on what you actually believe. The next level might say, okay, well, I'll put you on ice for future opportunities. So it gets you in the door to not be recycled based on what the next level decides. In whatever terminology somebody has in the lessons that they're learning, uh, which in most of the lessons that are in, well, I think all of the lessons that are in the Heaven's Gate book are probably applied to every human potentially. Uh, and you'll see throughout the religions also taught a lot of those things. And that's because the next level has been working with humans for the beginning of the civilization and with spirits and souls and previous civilizations of beings on other planets as well for beyond any concept of time that we can have. They've been doing it for that long, and so they're good at it, and they've hooked up with the highest source, and they know it. But they don't look down on people, but they are proud of it. I recognize that the information from TNO is above human. It's not human. But I don't think humans are bad. I just think humans are less evolved. And that's evidenced all the time. But then there's some things that humans are evolving with. The whole idea of women not having equal rights that was challenged in a major way in the United States in the mid 1800s was because the next level wanted that lesson to become part of the genome so they could have vehicles that could be the recipients of returning souls that were going through their lessons and overcoming their gender consciousness. So that's what, and then of course that can all be distorted as well. But the whole idea of people being um, of a leaning uh, that humans would call uh, LGBTQ or homosexual in the old days and or whatever the talk is about it. Uh, um, that's in those mind, in his mind, a sign that those individuals are outgrowing their gender consciousness. But that doesn't mean that they're overcoming their sexual consciousness. And that's another thing that there is no sexuality in the next level. So that's going to be something that uh, um, uh, people will grow their minds by, um, not being addicted to. Seen the class. Okay, I already read that one. So let me go down. Oh yeah, so XF says interesting that Three Eye Atlas changed colors from red to an eerie, unnatural shade of green. Aspects that are not part of a natural standard issue comet. Now, when we were listening to Stefan Burns, I think he said that some comets are. Well, what you're talking about, I guess, is you're calling it an unnatural shade of green. Some comets do show green. They say it's from carbon dioxide, right? In relationship to the way that light reflects off the objects, whatever it is. But but this one doesn't. They don't identify carbon dioxide as being part of uh, the object that's being called Atlas, Three Eye Atlas. And so they don't. So some of the people in that paper that Stephen Burns was going through, that Kathy reminded us of existing in his talk that he recently gave on YouTube channel, were saying that whatever's making that green isn't the same thing that is making uh, um, the green from other comets that they've observed, if I understand it correctly. But to me, that's interesting that it's showing a shade of green because of that uh, um, fourth, fourth, or the fourth depiction of a human vehicle taking over that seems to be related to the presidencies of the United States that they depict as being green in Revelation 6, 7, or 8. 6, 7, or 8, I think, if I remember correctly, which is in many translations as pale. But if you actually look at the word in Greek, it's chloros, which is actually the primary word, actually means green. It means the color green. So why they put pale there was to me a distortion. Or, I mean, I can see a relationship with that because some people interpreted it as a shade of green. So it's interesting, right? That XF is talking about it as an unnatural shade of green. Because one thing good about Stephen Burns is that he doesn't discount that uh, it can be a object that is not so-called natural object in terms of the way that humans think about comets as being natural objects. In other words, insinuating that it's a spacecraft of some sort, which it can be. It doesn't mean it has to have people on it, because the next level also has remote controlled spacecrafts of all different shapes and sizes, some that can be even as big as a planet, that humans just can't see what's going on inside of it or I mean on the outside of it. And even if they do see something, they don't know how to interpret what they're seeing because they don't have the mind, thoughts that are from the next level to be able to see those things. Because the next level gives humans everything, more forces they allow to be here to help stimulate our growth, be accelerated. But they keep a balance so that we're not overcome by the negativity if we seek their help to get out of it. And seeking their help doesn't necessarily have to take the shape and form of literally asking, Tiando, or asking the highest source, uh, um, because they recognize that there's humans that are in all different kinds of places in their lives because of their history, their genes, and their upbringing, uh, and how much whatever soul might be working with them, and even if they receive the soul deposit to develop a stronger soul from from filling with next level information, then everybody's got a potential difference. But one thing that Tiendo would say about that is that there's many paths to the top of the mountain, but there's only one way to get off. And that is you have to go to the individuals that came from off the mountain. And that's disguised in the human kingdom as being including space aliens, when there are aspects to space aliens that uh, um, do reflect some of the behaviors and ways of the next level, but they do it in a distorted way. And Tiendo didn't do it in any kind of distorted way. So that's where you can get the most accurate ways of looking at the next level realistically. And that's evidenced throughout all the audio tapes, and there's over 1,000 of them, I'm told.
Are you about ready?
Yeah. Oh, so Megara 1989 says, I enjoyed the Drab Majesty album, but I remember it saying, what if they were right, etc. So seemed respectful. Oh, is that right? I forgot about that. That it might have said something like that in there. I just knew that they were being objective. That's what was the impression that was left on me when I listened to them. So I left some good comments, I think, on the YouTube channel that I think they had. I'm not sure now, but I usually say something to everybody that says something about uh, T and Doe and crew in their music or whatever. So Joseph Coe says, "Do you ever miss your classmates or deceased family member or deceased family?" Well, I don't have any deceased family besides my vehicle family. Um,
Well, that's
but in a sense, there's aspects of my dad that I sometimes reflect on that I liked about him. So that's, you know, I guess you could say missing him in that regard. And my mother as well. Um, um, but as far as my classmates, uh, uh, I don't miss them in a way that uh, I would miss somebody that I was close to in this human kingdom, if they deceased. Like I would miss Kathy if she left her vehicle before I did, um, because I've grown very, bonded together with her in a number of ways, and so I would probably miss her. But at the same time, I would know that you know she was along her path. Whatever she was, the mind was experiencing, uh, was in the hands of the next level at that point, and it's not that I would be necessarily glad that that was the case, but I can't question. I'm not gonna, say to the next level there's something wrong with her leaving. If I'm gonna put it honestly, I just would have to recognize that that's the way it is. That's the way the human kingdom is. We don't have permanence in the human kingdom. Um, but that doesn't mean that when I left, if it was after somebody that I was close to in the human kingdom, that I wouldn't, uh, if I was, if I was saved to the same location for future opportunities to grow, that there wouldn't be some kind of recognition with other individuals that were saved to that location that um, I had been close to in the vehicle that I have. Because the souls do retain um, the strength of lessons and certain recognition of things, but they don't necessarily retain the details that are in the computer of the brain and the mind of the vehicle that isn't saved into the next level mind, into the soul. It's not part of the soul except in the ways of what we learned from the experiences. But I don't know to what degree individuals still have in their memory, like even my classmates on their spacecrafts, when they're overviewing oversight of the human kingdom at this point that's growing and all the humans that are asking for help that they're observing and offering help to in all the ways that they have to offer help to. I don't know how much they recognize those that, like for instance, me and what I did while I was in the classroom. So uh, I don't know if that sheds any light to that question. So Joseph Coates says, I'm pretty sure I've heard you answer this before, but I'm just curious again, a refresher on what your feelings are. Oh, that was what the last question that I just tried to answer. So then Koya Mira says, my parents ruined my life. Well, I can understand that that can be the case. I just, I have to, just say from my perspective of T and Do that it doesn't have to remain uh, with that understanding or that even memory. Um, that, I mean, there may be parts of your life that they ruined that you want to block out, and that's completely understandable. I don't think that's something that somebody needs to continue to revisit. If somebody was doing something to ruin your life, then that's a terrible thing. And but moving on from it is also a positive, and I believe, and that's what being a human exposes us to difficult circumstances. Everybody gets some degrees of difficult circumstances that for them is a mountain to climb. But they all have the capacity, if they seek the source, the highest source in the universe that created this planet and the life forms on it, whatever they call it, but they're thinking about it that way, as being outside the atmosphere of the earth, where the lower forces can pose to be a religious leader or, a savior of some sort, um, if you're projecting beyond that into the distant heavens, that's like a formula for communication that the next level can hear. And when they see individuals in their own way asking for that, then they help individuals in way by offering them ideas and ways of thinking about things so that they can get past any of the negativity that they still may be holding on to about somebody. And I'm not saying it's an easy lesson, whatever anybody is dealing with, but uh, that expression of everything can work out for good for those that love the Lord, that's got its reality to it. But you have to go to the correct Lord, the most accurate Lord, because if the Lord is a human that's dressed up as a Lord, like a priest or something, then that might be the best that somebody can do at a moment, and so they might get help from that person. But the, that wasn't ever meant that there was really a substitute in the human kingdom for one's heavenly Father in those terminologies, or God of gods, King of kings, you know, um, uh, Lord of lords, from outside the human kingdom. And not talking about space aliens, because they love to pose as lords to people, and they've abducted people, and they've had contact with humans that they've made into their slaves, and those humans don't even necessarily know it. But you can see their behaviors in the way that they are willing to hurt other people because they think it's justified because of what they believe. So they'll misuse people in the way that we've seen stories about, like with the Epstein story and all the people that were misusing young people, and misuse people by sending them to wars, or misuse people to use them as guinea pigs for their medicines without telling them that they're doing that, and uh, and profiting from it in different ways. So anyway, I guess I'm at a stopping point, and so unless something shows up in the chat in the next minute, I'm going to bring the stream to a close. I hope I didn't go through my notes much because I don't really need the notes, and I don't know why I show them on the screen. It's like,
Well, sometimes you go through them.
yeah, I just want to see some of the keywords that I want people to see some of the keywords that are being used in my notes because that's what I'm trying to write down. I'm trying to get some of the key thoughts so that individuals can have at least that much of the pure understanding that's coming from Tiendo. But actually, my preference would be that if people want to, they go find the tapes. And I can't tell you about how to do that because, uh, I'm being sued for telling people that kind of thing. And that's a whole other story that I'm not going to get into at all. So, with that said, since there's nothing new in the chat, I'm going to say good night.
Good night.